in the parking lot.
Jeez.
She's a concealed carry holder. Didn't carry on campus because it was a gun-free zone.
Yeah. Another fantastic government policy.
Absolutely. Hey, is there a better tool that empowers a woman to defend against an attacker that's bigger and stronger?
No, Dave, there isn't.
You need to raise your voice if you're going to do that. That's why it's so important for women to learn how to defend themselves with the most effective self-defense tool ever invented for women, led by women. That Not Me program is designed to help with training, purchasing a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. And guess what? It's free. To sign up, go to notmesd.org.
Big shout out to longtime YouTube listener Mike White for joining Orange County Gun Owners. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for listening and watching on YouTube. Really, truly appreciate you, my friend. But definitely huge thanks for joining Orange County Gun Owners just today, like half hour ago, Dave.
No kidding.
He joined. Good dude. Speaking of good dudes, our next guest is a longtime friend, really great guy, extremely passionate about the Second Amendment. He was here for Gun Prom, and you may have seen him on a number of different podcasts, but especially Polite Society. My buddy Rob Morris. How are you, Rob?
I am great. It's great to hear you two guys.
It's great
Thanks.
to hear you, man.
Appreciate it.
So, how did you enjoy Gun Prom? Let's start right there.
Okay. If you haven't been to Gun Prom, go to Gun Prom. I don't care where you live in the U.S. See what they do in San Diego. Steal their good ideas and go do Gun Prom where you live.
Thank you. That
I
means
agree.
a whole lot. That means a whole lot, my friend. Tell us about, now your blog can be found at slowfacts.wordpress.com. Tell us about slowfacts.wordpress.com.
You know where that started, Mike and Dave?
Yeah.
A buddy, when I was in San Diego, said, hey, you should come to Front Sight because you can't get a carry permit here, but at least you can get decent training in the area. And we're going to Front Sight with our church group. And it opened my mind so much. I went, I want to tell the rest of the world. My first post over a decade ago was about the trip to Front Sight. It's called A Letter Home.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I remember that. I absolutely remember that. I remember reading that now that you bring it up. I didn't know that was your first and on there. Now, tell us about Slow Facts. What does that mean, Slow Facts?
Okay, just you've been on the internet, and back a decade ago, it's the opposite of fast emotions because I'm not a teenage girl. They can go through 50 feelings before I figure out what I'm even trying to talk about. So I thought, wait a minute. You're welcome to your feelings. You're welcome to your opinions, but you're not welcome to your own facts. So let's try and be reasonable. Life's complex. And you know this all the time. You'll try and have a discussion with somebody. Hey, are guns a good idea or a bad? And you're not even asking the same question with them. They have a peculiar perspective on it, and you go, wait a minute, say that again slowly. Okay, from where you're coming from, that makes sense. But that's not where I am at all.
Yeah.
Where can we meet, right?
Well, you're absolutely. I think part of the issue is good and bad is totally subjective. You know,
Well,
my good might be your bad, and vice versa.
In fact, you were talking about that. But and that's where we can. Now, here's something else you and I do when we get in these conversations. We think we're going to convert somebody to our side, and I think there are, to steal a phrase, 50 stepping stones in between. Almost said shades of gray. Won't go there. That's a different podcast.
It's a whole different
There are 50 steps between someone who's never touched a gun, thinks guns are bad because they only know what they see in the media, and on the other end are the people at Gun Prom who said, wait a minute, I carry every day. It's a good thing. And the history that they get from the media is so distorted. I want to talk to you about it. I just wrote about it a little bit.
So what? Okay, so all right, that's perfect. Let's take a step back again. Your first blog, your first article, A Letter Home.
Right.
What was the big aha or epiphany, or what was the experience that you had that had such an impact on you? Describe that.
It's okay. This is like saying you should go learn about carrying a firearm. You should learn how to defend yourself with it. So we're going to dump you into a 4-day, 40-hour class. Can you swim yet? So it's intense. Mm-hmm. It's very focused, and everyone was there. There was literally an old vet could barely walk. There was a grandma who had, periodically, she goes, "Can you help me load this mag?" "Yes, ma'am. Glad you're here." And they all took it with the seriousness you'd expect. Did they perform the same? No. If you will, the final exam is a hostage target. It's you have a silhouette and two partial silhouettes behind it. You write your name or the name of a loved one on the center silhouette. Okay, back up 7 yards, 21 feet. Shoot the heads that are to the side of your loved one. You know what? Grandma didn't miss. Grandpa didn't miss. No one missed.
Isn't that amazing?
Because it's so serious. To me, that was not about their shooting skills. That was about their dedication over 4 days. So they felt the weight of the gun, the moral weight of the gun. I bet there are, I know there are. There's some places where you can go and shoot simulated firearms. It's in the Phoenix area, but it's an amusement. Nobody thought this was funny. Everybody realized what was at stake. So that was my takeaway. Wow, these folks are serious.
And getting that message out to the world, I don't think that message has been. It's not as mainstream as it should be. It's not as popular. It's not as widespread as it should be.
Well, we don't know what we don't know. We have the attitude that our neighbor, if they have a gun, is just like we are. And yet, if I took a neighbor who hasn't touched guns, I said, "Would you like to touch this?" Their first response, which makes perfect sense, is to go, "I don't know how yet. I don't think I should even pick it up." And you go, "You are perfect." Michael and Bill, I'm sorry.
Dave. But yeah, go ahead.
Dave,
Yeah.
I went to watch a bunch of teachers become defenders in their school.
Oh, wow.
And they had almost the same attitude. Now, they've been carrying guns, but they go, "Do you know what could happen here if I miss?" And they talk themselves out of the program. Some of them did. And then we do medical training the next day, and they go, "I know this is fake blood. It's corn syrup and red dye, and it's going to stain my clothes, but I would do anything to make sure this isn't one of my kids or one of my colleagues." And they realized that they're the only thing standing between the people they love and something horrible.
Well, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people put this piece together, but it definitely occurs to me a lot when I'm, dealing with city councils and dealing with resolutions and studies and new regulations or whatever and lawsuits. There are definitely some issues in the United States. There are some problems that need to get solved. There's a positive impact we could have on suffering. For a very, very broad term. There are people out there that are committing crimes. There are people out there that are causing harm to people. Imagine what we could accomplish if the anti-gunners would stop demonizing us, the folks who aren't committing crime, and we got together and said, "Hey, let's work on the things where there is a consensus and stop, this extremist anti-gun agenda and say, hey, let's get together and figure out what can we do to make sure that people decide to, not be criminals. I'm not going to join a gang. I'm not going to be a professional criminal, or I'm not going to commit suicide. I'm not going to commit suicide today."
Yeah.
Imagine what would happen if, and I am completely biased because I've dedicated my whole life to it, but it is entirely the fault of the anti-gun folks. Over and over, I've said, "Hey, look, gun owners, we're just living our life, and they're the ones that are coming and, hitting us in the eye." And people, San Diego County Gunner, we don't have an agenda. What we do is we stand in the way of other people's agendas because we're just trying to live our life. But imagine, Rob, if the anti-gunners would stop being anti-gunners and would decide to become a part of what are some very real solutions. Imagine what we could accomplish.
We could move mountains, and we are. I mean, what was it? Just last month, we had I forget 1 million and change new gun owners. We are changing the world. We don't see it every day. There was something I read, Michael. When you look at people that commit violent crimes, the people who commit aggravated assault, 70% of them are intoxicated when they do it.
Wow.
So is this a spinoff of alcohol and drug addiction? If we fix that, violent crime would drastically reduce. Now, are there still professional criminals? Yep. Okay. But we've taken a big bite out of that.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that people don't see what we see, which is unfortunate.
Thank God you're there.
But thank God we're all here. I mean, there's so much work to be done and so many people doing good work. So one of your blogs, one of your articles, your armed neighbors stop violent crime and save lives. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, most people, what the media sells us is clickbait. If there's a story where
you know what, my timing was horrible. Rob, let's finish that. Let's finish that. I was so into talking to you. But let's on the other side of this commercial. I'm teeing you up. We're going to talk about that article.
Hey, a lot of companies waste an enormous amount of money on marketing. The design is excellent. The photos are beautiful. Your website looks great, but it's just not getting customers. Why? Well, because you don't have the words that make people buy. But now you can fix that with Sage Tree. Sage Tree can help you find the words that make it easy for your customers to understand what you do and how to buy from you. Stop wasting money today and schedule a call. Getting started is real easy. Just visit sagetree.com, click on the schedule an appointment button. That's what I said, sagetree.com, and click on that schedule a call button, and you will be totally satisfied.
Okay, we're talking to my good buddy Rob Morris, and I just before we went to commercial, asked him about his article, Your Armed Neighbors Stop Violent Crime and Save Lives. And you were just starting to get into that. Can you talk about that?
Well, I want to back up that commercial you had during the break.
Yeah.
It's what does it take to make a sale? And you've been doing this for years, Michael and Dave. It takes several handshakes. You don't make a sale the first time. Mm-hmm. And especially with our media, we're being told a really skewed version of reality. There's a story where a local jeweler stops a robbery with a firearm. Get out of my store. Bad guy runs away. Okay. Does the media cover that story? If the guy in the local stop and rob, the convenience store, gets shot, they'll cover that story. And for each time they happen, the bias isn't, well, they cover the robbery a few more times. It's they cover the robbery 1,000 times more. So we forget that our neighbors use a gun to save their own lives.
Yes, they do.
And, okay, so it's not that our neighbors, when we have this discussion, are trying to have their own facts. It's they're struggling through this fog of media bias. The numbers look like, I've been at it for about a decade. I started with you. Thank you for a good start. It looks like we defend ourselves about 2.8 million times a year. What's that? San Diego City, not the county. That's twice the population of San Diego City.
Yeah.
It's all the adults in San Diego County. That's a lot of people. That matters. That's not, that's an inconsequential statistic down along the eighth largest city in the United States. No, that's not trivial. And people go, well, we need to do gun control because it'll save one life. I go, you do understand that my neighbors used a firearm to stop over 300,000 sexual assaults last year. Let's start there. And you want to say that we don't until they understand the size of our virtues, we're not really on the same page. They're arguing about what they see in the media, and you and I are going, you don't understand, my neighbors are wonderfully virtuous and safe. The thing I love, and this is California DOJ didn't know they were doing us a favor, because firearms owners are licensed. We know about their criminal history because concealed carry permits are so regulated. If one of those concealed carriers so much as stubs their toe, it's covered and their statistics are gathered. They're more law-abiding than the police.
Way more. It's not, and it's significantly more than people who hold CCWs commit fewer crimes than the general population. They commit fewer crimes than law enforcement as a group. I think it's a hilarious, to me it's hilarious. It's a hilarious statistic because it's kind of a I told you so statistic,
Well, on the other hand, it is one of those, but is it meaningful? Both numbers are small. Both numbers are enormously smaller than the general population. And when you get down in those really skinny statistics, it turns out sociologists find it hard to tell the difference between very small numbers. Like, we just don't commit enough crimes to get statistical data. So a buddy of mine goes, okay, we thought the most law-abiding people in the world were married Japanese men. They go, but we can't tell the difference between them and people who have their concealed carry permits. Neither of them commit enough crimes, so we got to call it a tie. It's hiding within And you said, look, you've been doing this for a while, both of you. If we wanted to save lives tomorrow, we forget that mass murder is tremendously rare. There were 62 victims in 2020 of mass murder. There were 22 victims out of 2 school attacks last year. The great news is those are small numbers. We have never, ever, ever had an attack at a school where we took down the no gun signs.
Jeez.
Funny thing.
The attacker in Nashville, we just got they leaked her manifesto. And one of the things she says as she's about to go kill children in a Christian school, I hope no one there is armed. She told us. She's not unusual. All of them say that. They go find innocent victims. They're not going for a gunfight.
Right. No, it's a good way to put it. They're not going for a gunfight. They're going really to cause terrorism and
they want bullets going one way.
Yeah. So you're saying if we as a society wanted more law-abiding citizens, then we should do one or two things. We should force more people to become married Japanese men. Or maybe it's a little easier to promote the idea of becoming not just a gun owner, but a carry permit holder. And statistically, we'd have a safer society.
Well, how about if every school put a sign up and said this school is armed and ready,
or didn't just or actually made their school armed and ready? You didn't even have the sign,
well,
but then also
get that. No one's going to go for that. But if you just put the sign, Just put the sign up.
Well, okay. I'm so glad you said that. You do know that there are 36 states that allow armed school staff.
Wow,
is it up to 36?
California is not one of them.
Well,
I'm sorry. Now, hold on. Let's back up, though. I think, 10 years ago, there were schools in the Central Valley, right near our prison, by the way, where they said, if anything happens, law enforcement's really busy, and I don't want the problem to start here. And not too long after, this was during the open carry walks, the California legislature then said, yeah, that what you were doing to keep our kids safe, you can't do that anymore. Okay, it's going to take some education, but we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Totally.
So what? I mean, I don't even think of myself. I think of myself. I'm a civil rights activist. I'm a civil rights activist. You know, I don't. It's gotten to the point where there is a separation between me when I think about this. There's a separation between what I do, what I advocate for, and like front sight, which I know sounds odd. It sounds odd.
No, 100%.
But I think to myself, look, I'm fighting for a tool that helps women prevent sexual assault. I'm fighting for a tool that helps women, fight against and stop domestic violence. I'm fighting for a tool that helps people of color defend against racists. I'm fighting for a tool where the meek are able to stop from becoming victims of violent crime. It's almost to the point where the hobby is completely different from what I'm advocating for, which it's not different, but it's to the point where that's what's in my head is like, look, what I do and what our organization does and what Rob does and what everybody's trying to do here, we're trying to get that tool in as many hands and educate them on it as possible, because that does good. That makes society a good place if they're able to defend themselves.
I want to ask you something, though, because you've talked to a lot of people who have the media version of firearms, which is part media, part Hollywood, in their heads, and you say we have a right to this, and they're thinking John Wick.
Right.
And they're going, I don't know that I like that. So now and I use the numbers to try and pry people off of the Hollywood version to say, look, you've got it wrong. We're nice folks. We're good people. Get away from the left coast and the right coast and flyover country is really pretty squared away.
Or even hunting, Rob. Even if it's not, for me, I think it's more hunting than like.
What do you mean?
Than Hollywood.
What do you mean?
I don't like people. Well, gee, I'll say, well, Second Amendment guns is what I do for a living. They go, my uncle used to hunt or whatever. I'm like, hunting? That I don't hunt. I've never hunted. I'm not really all that particularly interested in hunting, and this has nothing to do with hunting. Like that. What you've been exposed to is not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not. I don't want to make sure that people can. I'm not trying to make sure protect against an uprising in the deer population. Like I'm not afraid that whitetails are gonna decide they've had enough and try to take this place back. Hunting has nothing to do. Like, oh well, my grandpa used to hunt and he taught me and he took me hunting. Okay, it's got nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're. Like you talk to somebody, you like to bake? Well, great. You must know a lot about farming. No, I don't know anything about farming. I'm a baker.
Do you remember the gal? And I've met her face to face. I can't remember her last name. I'm pretty sure her first name's Amanda. She was I think she was still an undergraduate trying to focus on nursing. University of Nevada, Reno, taking tests. Right, staying late at night into the term. The police station that's on campus has shut down at night because the students are there so late taking exams. She gets abducted and raped in the parking lot.
Jeez.
She's a concealed carry holder. Didn't carry on campus because it was a gun-free zone.
Yeah, another fantastic government policy.
Absolutely.
And she finally went. Now the crazy thing. Do you want an admission of guilt? She goes to the administration of the university and says, I'm carrying. I dare you to tell me I can't because I'll eat you. Whoops.
There you go. Rob, absolutely love you to death, man. Where do people find you? Go to slowfacts.wordpress.com. Is there anything else you want to make sure that people know about?
The Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast comes out once a week. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dave.
You bet. Right. Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Look for my buddy Rob Morse, an absolute, just a mensch and a gentleman and a giant among men. Thank you so much for everything you do, Rob. Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.